snow is still sticking around in some places, but for the most part it's warming up, so it doesn't seem like there's going to be any more snow, I guess, for the season, huh? And what's going on today? It's kind of interesting reading this one because there's often a lot of conflict when it comes to people flying drones. For example, abiding by the federal laws versus all the local ones, and many times localities, they make airspace restrictions and so forth when they don't have the legality to do so. So how about this one? It's kind of interesting. This one says AUVSI applauds passage of industry-backed drone legislation in Mississippi. Today, the Association for Uncrewed Vehicle Systems International commended Mississippi legislators for passing and Governor Reeves for signing into law legislation to ensure the state is ready for the future of advanced aviation. The Uncrewed Aircraft Systems Rights and Authorities Act will foster a regulatory environment that enables the burgeoning drone industry without infringing upon existing airspace authorities. The Mississippi law codifies that ultimate authority over the airspace lies with the Federal Aviation Administration and prevents additional burdensome regulations, creating a secure and cohesive regulatory environment in which commercial drone operations can thrive. So it's always interesting. Do you believe, for example, drone regulations, they should always just follow federal laws? Or do you believe, for example, every locality and stuff should be able to make their own rules about the airspace? It says Michael Smitsky, Vice President, Government Affairs at AUVSI, said, with industry-backed legislation, now state law, AUVSI is proud to declare Mississippi drone prepared. Mississippi is at the forefront of the states leading the way in preparing for the benefits that the future of uncrewed and autonomous flight will bring to the communities. AUVSI and drone prepared partners support proposals which 1. Promote drone use for public benefit, 2. Recognize the authority of the Federal Aviation Administration over airspace navigation and safety, and 3. Leverage existing laws that already address concerns like privacy and trespass and promote technology neutrality. That makes me think of the other point I often think about, where the laws and stuff, they make absolutely no sense when people are saying, oh, make this drone law where you have to keep it X amount of meters away from people because you could be, quote, spying on them or so forth, or actually adding clause, if you spy on someone with your drone, that type of thing, then whatever, you'll get some kind of fine. There's already laws in place that deal with it. If someone's using it for voyeurism and all that, I don't care what you're using, a drone, a smartphone, a camera, you will be punished, correct? So there's so much technicality and unnecessary laws that just restrict, in my opinion, people doing absolutely nothing wrong when you make it so complicated. So I think in general, stuff like this is good in terms of condensing everything. And I read this, which was kind of interesting today. There's been a lot of talk recently about potential censorship, I guess you could say, when it comes to this Bill C-11 law that's being introduced here. Now, apparently it passed initially, but it had to go to the Senate. And the concern that most people would have is how it's being presented as, oh, we're just making this because we want to control, let's just say, the bigger companies like the Netflixes and all that. Whereas people are arguing, hey, the way you wrote this, it sounds like you want to restrict or control, per se, everyone that creates, let's just say, content or something like that online. So apparently when it went to the Senate here in Canada, they modified it to make sure, hey, you're going to keep, for example, I guess, user-generated content out of this. But because of that, it says here they rejected it, which makes you wonder, what's going on? This one says, Liberals reject Senate amendment excluding user content from controversial online streaming bill. Critics have said the way Bill C-11 is written would allow the CRTC to regulate a much wider range of online content than the Liberals claim it is meant to. And in terms of, I guess, what some of the senators said in terms of adjusting it, it says it was surgical in order to ensure Bill C-11 actually does what the government has told us that it wants to do. The amendment is scoped so it only includes exactly the people that the government says it wishes to include. The large music producers, the Warner Brothers, the Sony, and the like. It absolutely does not include social media, Simon said at the time. Critics were quick to react on Tuesday evening. Internet advocacy group Open Media said on Twitter it was stunned and furious. The group said Rodriguez had just announced a complete rejection of the senator's work that excluded your user content from the CRTC regulation. Your podcasts, CRTC regulated. Your TikToks, potentially regulated. So that's kind of crazy. It makes you think too, doesn't that make it crystal clear what they originally wanted this to do, if that makes sense. I mean, I don't see any other way to look at it when you're that apprehensive, where you say it was to take care of these particular, I guess, situations. So we'll make it even more clear. And now you're like, no, absolutely not. So does that make it sound like they were targeting, for example, like everyone who makes user-generated content, if that's what you want to say? Okay, something just happened, guys. The drone, it seemed like the battery just died for some reason. Fortunately, I'm flying it in open space as usual, and I usually plan it where if it falls. But I think since it fell, it kind of drifted a bit. And no, it wasn't even close to being drained. So for some reason, it just died and fell out of the sky. That happened before with the Mavic Pro, except during that time, you guys remember there was something wrong with the actual arm or the leg of the drone. This one, I don't know what's wrong. It seems like it was just a battery issue. Okay, as a quick recap of what's going on, for whatever reason, the drone lost power mid-flight. And when it was falling down, I looked at the screen too, just to try to see if it reconnected, because at first I thought it was just a disconnection with the controller and the smartphone, for example. But sure enough, it seemed like the drone was dead, so maybe the battery just died just like that. It obviously hit a tree on its way down, and as it landed, it indicated on this thing that it kind of landed in the middle of the pond, actually right in an area where it's not in the water. Even from the sound and all that, there was no splash or anything like that. But the thing is too, this says when it quote disconnected, so that makes it kind of harder to find the exact location, because if it hits a tree, for example, it could bounce like into various spots and so forth, so that makes it more difficult. So I guess I'll have to try tomorrow to see if I can find it. Otherwise, I guess it's a loss. And the unfortunate thing too is, remember when I contacted Autel about their care plan and all that? They actually never got back to me. I could only imagine it's because of that wording and stuff. Remember I said they should be offering like the free shipping labels and so forth? And one of the issues too, I did mention it was the batteries. Now this one here I was using wasn't the one that was chipped or anything like that too, but it made me wonder if there was something wrong with the batteries in general. And can you imagine that? If it was, and during this time they could have just got back to me, sent everything back, got it replaced and so forth. That would be disappointing if that was the case, actually. But yeah, that's the situation at the moment. So I guess I'll try again tomorrow to see if we can find it or not. Other than that, see you guys later.